Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we begin with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for its global platform all over the world of Arbatzas Torah. We also thank the new and united Eretz Yisrael and American Kol Haloshin and its global network. Torah Communication Network also for carrying our shiurim to our Zoomers, our subscribers, our YouTubers, and those that are joining us here in our flagship station at Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood. Tonight's shir, once again, is made possible in the last minute by one of my dear Talmidim, Dr. and Mrs. Block, in honor of their grandson who is graduating from Torah's MS, Torah's Chaim of Miami. He's graduating high school, and that's Moshe Mordechai ben David Yeshaya Yutkowitz. He should be Zeicha to be a Talmid Chacham, a Yerush Shamayim, happy, and have good friends. Bhaloscha Gems, the parasha says, when you raise the candles, El Mul Pnei HaMenorah, towards the menorah, Yo'iru Shivas HaNeros. Should the 7 lamps illuminate. Now, the Medrash comments on Pnei HaMenorah that the wicks were deliberately turned inward. Now, when you want light, you don't turn the wicks inward. You want the light to go out further. So the Medrash says that this was to indicate that the menorah was not lit in the Mishkan and in the Beis Hamikdash to illuminate the Kodesh. As it says, the Medrash says, does Hashem need your light? For 40 years, we traveled in the pitch black desert when there was no moon. The desert was pitch black. So 3 million people would have been in pitch black. There were no street lamps in the desert. It would have been pitch black. On a cloudy night when there's no stars, it would be pitch black. But we had the Amud Eish, the pillar of fire, which illuminated and made it like day. So he said, for 40 years, we traveled with Hashem's pillar of fire. Does Hashem need us to turn on a light in his Beis Hamikdash, in his Mishkan? Rather, it's testimony to those that come in the world, that the Shechina rested in Yisrael. Now, how is that a testimony? We must know that it wasn't just on Hanukkah that was a miracle with the menorah. They put in the same amount of oil in all the lamps. In all the lamps, there was the same amount of oil in all 7 lamps. 6 of the lamps went out in the morning. The Ner Maravi kept on lighting until the afternoon, when they would light from it the other lamps and then put it out. So that means that it lasted another half a day, almost a whole day. When I say half a day, almost a whole 12 hours more. It lasted with the same amount of oil all the time. And this was a testimony that the Shekhinah was by Klal Yisrael. And I always say that this is one of the fundamentals of Hanukkah. When we remember the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash on Hanukkah, and we put the menorah in front of our door or by our windows, we are proclaiming Jewish pride, that the Shekhinah is Shayra b'Yisrael, that we are Banim to Hashem, we are the Am Segula, the treasured nation, and we are Am Kidoshecha, we are your holy nation, because the Shekhinah is with us. It's also, by the way, another reason why we're not allowed to benefit from the light of the menorah. We know that every night we light a shamash. Why do we light a shamash? Because we're not allowed to benefit from the light of the menorah. So if the lights are out and only the light of the menorah would be there, we wouldn't be able to read in the room. We wouldn't be able to do anything. We're not allowed to benefit from the light of the menorah. Now, the simple reason that we're not allowed to benefit from the light of the menorah is because we don't want to detract from its message. It's not there to give light. It's to give thanks to Hashem for the miracle of Hanukkah. We wouldn't be here if not for the miracle of Hanukkah, of the miracle of defeating the Olympic might of the Syrian Greeks. And that's what we say after we light the candles, right? We say the beautiful song of Haneras Halalu. We say, these lights are holy. We can't benefit from them. We're only allowed to look at them. Why? To make it clear that its purpose is to give thanks and to praise. But that's not the only reason why we're not supposed to benefit. Now we know another reason. Because even in the Beis Hamikdash, it wasn't for its light. That would be an insult. Do you think Hashem needs to pay Con Edison? Do you think Hashem needs to put in lights in his room? Does he need the light? And therefore, since the menorah is a memory of the menorah in the Mikdash, it can't be that we use it for its light. However, Rav Twersky over here asks an interesting question. Rav Twersky says that when the Medrash explains that it can't be that Hashem needs the light, it brings a proof. Does Hashem need the light? When you traveled with the Amud Eish in the desert, the Medrash could have said something more simple. Did Hashem make the light when he put the sun in the sky, which illuminates the whole world? The creator of the sun needs a light? Why did it say the Amud Eish and not the sun? It's a good question. And the answer is, it's the same reason why when Hashem introduced us at Har Sinai, he said, Anochi Hashem Elikecha, I am Hashem who took you out of Egypt. Why didn't he say, I am Hashem who created the world? And the answer is because we didn't see him create the world. But we knew he took us out of Egypt. And the same thing, it doesn't say, does Hashem need the light he made the sun. We didn't see Hashem make the sun. But the people of the Mishkan saw Hashem bring every night in the Midbar the Amud Eish, just like he brought the clouds of glory. We learned something very important from over here. That when working on conveying emunah, when we could give people actual demonstrations, things that they could see, that it makes a greater impression on them rather than just telling them to believe. If you could impress people about the Chochmas HaTorah, if you can impress people about the mind-boggling wisdom of the Torah, that makes a great impression upon them. So therefore, when you show them the depth of the secrets in the Torah, for example, the Torah starts off Bereshis bara Elokim. Bereshis bara Elokim is B'gematria 1202 exactly. And we know Bereshis means B'shvil Torah shenikra Bereshis. Rashi tells us that the world was created because of the Torah. And the Zohar tells us the world was created with the blueprint of the Torah. Istakel baraisa or bara alma. Now when somebody points out to you that Bereshis bara Elokim, the great Per Aaron, Zeichet Tzadik HaKodesh L'Vracha Hashem Yinkum Dama, points this out. Bereshis bara Elokim is 1202, and Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim, that's Tanakh, that's the Torah, is 1202. Exactly. By the way, Nevi'im has to be spelled with 2 yuds and Ksuvim with 1 yud. But it's 1202. When people begin to understand the boggling secrets in the Torah, it makes an impression upon them. When you tell them that Bereshis bara Elokim is 1202, and Torah Shalom Shechina is 1202. Because the synthesis of Torah and Shalom, bringing Shechina, is the purpose of the world, that makes an impression. They say, wow, it's unbelievable the secrets in every element of the Torah. I believe that in order to really get our generation to have a rock-solid emunah in the Messiah, you have to spoon-feed them, not just tell them, this is what we got from Hashem at Sinai. Sinai, who knows if Sinai ever happened? You have to show them that we have an ironclad Messiah from Sinai. Unshakable. You have to show them people that is clear from evidence of their books that exist throughout the ages. The Rambam made it clear that there's a Messiah, an ironclad, unshakable Messiah from Moshe Rabbeinu till the editor of Shas, Rav Ashi. He says, we know the 40 people that connect Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai to Rav Ashi, the editor of the Talmud. It's important to show people this. I'm going to tell it to you now because I think it's very important. The Rambam says we know Moshe gave the Messiah to Yeshua. Yeshua gave it to the famous Pinchas. Pinchas gave it to Eli HaKohen. Eli HaKohen gave it to the legendary Shmuel HaNavi. Now Shmuel HaNavi anointed David. So here already we have, just with 5 people, we connect David HaMelech, King David, to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe, Yeshua, Pinchas, Eli, Shmuel, and David. These are all world-known, undisputable people. Now David gave it to Achia Shiloni. Now the truth of the matter is, once we have Achia Shiloni, Achia Shiloni enjoyed tremendous longevity. Once we have Achia Shiloni, we don't need Yeshua, Pinchas, Eli, Shmuel, or David. Because Achia Shiloni came out of Mitzrayim. He knew Moshe Rabbeinu. Achia Shiloni gave the Messiah to Eliyahu HaNavi. Eliyahu HaNavi gave it to Elisha. Elisha gave it to Yoyada HaKohen. Yoyada gave it to Zechariah. Zechariah gave it to Hosea. Hosea gave it to Amos. These are all people that have Svarim in their name, that are known. There are manuscripts. Amos gave it to Yeshaya. Yeshaya gave it to the infamous Micha. Micha gave it to the Navi Yoel. Yoel gave it to the Navi Nachum. Nachum gave it to the Navi Chavakuk. Chavakuk gave it to the Navi Tzvanya. See, rather than choose kings, the Rambam chose prophets, because these were all righteous prophets. Tzvanya gave it to Baruch ben Neriah, and now we're already by Ezra. Baruch ben Neriah gave it to Ezra. This is already... Ezra went back into Eretz Yisrael after the Gullus of the Babylonian Gullus. Ezra gave it to Shimon HaTzadik, who was from the Shiarei Knesset Agdayla. Shimon, now we're starting the Zugais, the peers, mentioned in Pirkei Avos. I'm only mentioning one of the peers. Shimon gave it to Antigonus. Antigonus gave it to Yosef ben Yezer. Yosef ben Yezer gave it to Yeshua ben Prachya. Yeshua ben Prachya gave it to Yeshua ben Tabai. Yeshua ben Tabai gave it to Shmaya and Naftalion. Shmaya and Naftalion gave it to Hillel and Shammai. Hillel and Shammai gave it to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. These are all world-known people. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai gave it to Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken. Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken gave it to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel the first. Shimon Gamliel gave it to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi gave it to Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel gave it to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel the second. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel the second gave it to the legendary Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan gave it to Rabbi Hoshea. Rabbi Hoshea gave it to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda gave it to Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia gave it to Rav, the legendary Rav, and Rav gave it to Rav Ashi. We have here a chain. You have to know, all these people made a Seder Shel Pesach. They all said, Avodim Hayinu b'Mitzrayim. They gave it all over one to the other. They all said, Ilu kervonu lefnei har Sinai v'lo nasan lanu es haTorah dayenu. They all said it. This brings us already to 427 of the Common Era. Now, Rav Ashi had a cohort. The second editor of Shas was Ravina. Rav Ashi gave it to Ravina. Then it was given over to there was a period of 100 years when it was given over to the Rabbonim Savaroi. This was from 500 to 600 after the Common Era. They refined the Talmud. Then they gave it over to the Gainim, like Rav Hai Gain and his father Rav Shrira Gain. After that, it was given over to the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Gershon, the famous Rabbeinu Gershon, who made the takana that you shouldn't have 2 wives. Rashi, which brings us to 1105. The Rambam, then the Rabbeinu Tam and the Meiri. After the Rabbeinu, now we're already going into the 1500s. You have Rabbi Yaakov Meirav, who brought back the Smicha, Rav Yosef Kairoi, the Baal Shulchan Aruch, the Alshich HaKadosh, the Arizal and Reb Chaim Vital, then the Ramah and the Barbanel. Now we're already going to 1572. Then there was the Sma, the famous Sefer of Mitzvahs, which was 1614, the Ber Agoyla, 1671, the Magen Avram, 1682, the Vilna Gaon, which brings us to 1797. Then we have Reb Chaim Volozhin in 1824, Reb Zundel Salanter in 1866, Reb Yisrael Salanter, 1883, the famous Reb Simcha Zisel of Kelm, 1898. Then you have Reb Yucham Levovitz, already 1936, and of course you have the Chofetz Chaim, you have Reb Eliyah Lapkat. Then you have the Chazon Ish, Reb Moshe Feinstein, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Reb David Feinstein, to our day. This is an unbroken chain of known people. We're passed from one to the other. We're not talking about, these people are all giants. And they carried the Messiah. It's an unbroken Messiah. Can't say, well, I don't know if it happened. What do you mean you don't know if it happened? You know all these people. They're all reliable. They passed it one to the other in an unbroken chain. Every Pesach, we forge another link in this chain. But this is what we're saying. To tell people that God created the world, nobody saw that. To say Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, from the time that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim till today, we have an unbroken chain. It's incredible. And it's important to teach this. V'nosa degel machana b'nei Dan, ma'asef l'kol ha'machanos. The camp of Dan, they traveled in the rear. Rashi tells us that since they traveled in the rear, they found all the lost articles and returned them back to their owners, and they helped the stragglers and assisted them and aided them. Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, in his Aznayim L'Torah, says a very interesting thing. Rav Zalman Sorotzkin says that Shevet Dan was a weak Shevet. It was Shevet Dan that unfortunately had the Pesel Micha, the image of Micha traveling with them. In Oz Yashir it says V'amayim lehem choma, and the word choma is written defective without a vav. The Medrash says V'amayim lehem chema, without a vav. It's anger. The water was raging because the water wanted to drown Klal Yisrael because of Pesel Micha. Shevet Dan had the Pesel Micha. From Shevet Dan would come Yeravam ben Nevat, who would tear Klal Yisrael and separate the 10 tribes who would eventually be lost. Says Reb Zalman Sorotzkin, Hashem wanted to help Shevet Dan, and that the merit of returning lost articles and helping the stragglers would give them more opportunities for ruchnius, because mitzvah gereris mitzvah. And as we learned in Pirkei Avos, sheschar mitzvah mitzvah. They apply this Oznaim L'Torah to today's tragedy of children off the D, children off the derech. We call them KIP, kids in pain, because many of them have suffered trauma of one kind or another. And he says that for them it's easier to do mitzvahs shebein adam lechaveroi. It's easier for them to understand than the ritualistic mitzvahs. But if we could give them opportunities to do tzedakah, if we could give them opportunities to do chesed, bikur chaylim, gladdening a bride, comforting a mourner, those could help to generate that they should do eventually the mitzvahs of Bein Adam L'Makom. Remember that we said that the Maharsha says that B'derech she'adam roitza laleches ma'lichin aisai. It says ma'lichin is in the plural. Hashem would be in the singular. He says the mitzvahs that we do, they create malachim, and those malachim lead us to do more mitzvahs. Get people to do. They have a hard time doing it. Don was given opportunities, Bein Adam L'Chaveroi, helping with stragglers, helping return lost articles. That will strengthen their spirituality, Bein Adam L'Makom. We're going to talk about now something that people know. You know it, but you have to learn to retrain yourself, to put it in practice. There's a Shalach Kaddish on the pasuk in this week's parsha. It says, Al pi Hashem yachanu, v'al pi Hashem yiso. Now there's a famous Chassam Sofer on this pasuk that says that we should behave when we travel the same way as we behave when we're home. There are people that don't do this. They think that when they travel and they were away from the public eye, they could do things different. So when they go to the Caribbean, they don't have to dress like they dress in Borough Park. Of course, Hashem is all over the place. Hashem Haaretz Malaya. Says the Chassam Sofer, Al pi Hashem yachanu, by the word of Hashem you should camp in Borough Park, in Monsey, in Williamsburg, Al pi Hashem yiso. By that same word you should travel. You don't behave differently just because, you're somewhere vacationing. That doesn't give you a license to lessen your modesty or your care in kashrus. But the holy Shalach Kaddish says a very fundamental idea.
It seems to be staying on.
The Shalach Kaddish says that Al pi Hashem yachanu v'al pi Hashem yiso means that you should train yourself to always say Im Yirtzeh Hashem or Be'ezus Hashem. Whether you're camping, whether you're traveling, it should always be Im Yirtzeh Hashem or Be'ezus Hashem. And he says that if you do that, here, let me quote his eloquent language. Al kol pe'ula u'tenua, for every action and movement, she'adam avakesh lazos, yaktim v'yomer im yirtzeh Hashem oy be'ezus Hashem. And as a mnemonic, he quotes the pasuk, Rabbois machshavos b'levish, many are the thoughts in a man's heart, v'atzas Hashem hisakim, but the counsel of Hashem, that is what endures. So he says he, Hey Yud Aleph, is an acronym for Im Yirtzeh Hashem. V'atzas Hashem hisakim, if a person says Im Yirtzeh Hashem or Be'ezus Hashem, that helps that what we want should come to fruition. So that's Al pi Hashem yachanu, Al pi Hashem yiso. Now in Sanhedrin, we learned about the Sefer. It's not canonized, But there's a sefer called Ben Sira. Gemara had said that there are certain foolish things in Ben Sira, but there's also a lot of wisdom in the sefer Ben Sira. So the sefer Ben Sira says, La'olam al yomer adam shum davar ela begozer Hashem. He should say that I'm doing this if Hashem decreed it. And he says two stories. The first story he says, it's Pam Echad, Adam Aimer, a man says, L'macher, tomorrow is my wedding, Eishev im arusasi bechupa, I will enjoy with my betrothed under the canopy, V'dabe kima, and later I will consummate my marriage with her. So Amrullah, they told him, Emar im goizer Hashem, say, if Hashem so decrees. So he said, no, she loves me, I love her. Amar im goizer im lo yigzer, whether he decrees it or not, tomorrow is the plan. So he went under the chuppah, they went to the home, and before he consummated the marriage, they both died. Doesn't say how. Today we could say that there was a gas leak, but they both died. And Ben Sira says, Yafa, it was proper to tell them they should say, Im Geyser Hashem. Then he tells another story. This doesn't have such a grim ending, but it's an interesting story. Ben Sira says, Shum Ma'isa Ba'adam Echad Oshir. He was a very wealthy man. And he had farmland. But V'tzorech Shvarim, he needed to buy oxen. So he left it at his house with a kis maleh of 100 dinarim. And he went on the road, and Paga by Eliyahu met him. Amalei, so Eliyahu said to him, Lahechan halach, where are you going? Amar liknai shvarim, I'm going to buy oxen. Amalei, so he said to him, Omer im yigzor Hashem, say if Hashem decrees. So the rich man says, what do you mean if Hashem decrees? Amar im yigzor im lo yigzor, I got money in my pocket, and there's a market. So Eliyahu told him, V'loi ba'atzlacha, you're not going to prosper. So the man went, probably didn't know it was Eliyahu. So Halach, he went, he had a hole in his pocket. V'nafel kisai, and his wallet fell out of his pocket along the way. And when he came to the market, he realized he had no money. No money, no honey. He returned home empty-handed, a wasted trip. Okay, this man has a lot of money. He leaves with another wallet with 100 denarii. And he goes to another market. This time Eliyahu meets him disguised as an old man. Says to him, where are you going? So he says, I have a trip. I'm going to the market to buy me some shvarim. So Eliyahu told him, as the old man, say Im Yigzar Hashem. He again stubbornly says, what do you mean Im Yigzar Hashem? I got money, I'm going to the market, I'm going to buy me oxen. Along the way, he got tired, and he stopped to rest. He fell asleep. Eliyahu came and took his wallet. He gets to the market. He digs into his knapsack. The money's not there. He goes home again, disgruntled. A third time he goes with 100 dinner. Eliyahu meets him again. I don't know what costume Eliyahu had this time. He says, where are you going? He says, third time is the charm. He says, I'm going to buy shvarim im yigzar Hashem. Eliyahu says, Olav Hitzlach. And Eliyahu surreptitiously returns him the two other wallets. He gets to the market, he buys the oxen, he finds somebody has two paradumas to sell, two red cows, which was a big mitzvah. He said, how much do you want? He says, it's 200 denarii. He says, oh, I don't have 200 denarii. He looks in his knapsack and he finds returned the other 200 denarii. He bought it and he sold it to a king for 1,000 denarii. He became very rich. So Ben Sira says, we learn from this that a person should always say, Im Yirtzeh Hashem. Now we have to know that we always should have Shem Shemayim, Shagar B'fi. First of all, it's a fulfillment of B'chol Drachecha Da'ehu. In all your ways you should acknowledge Him. If you do that, the pasuk promises us, V'hu yiyasher orcheisecha. He will make straight your path. Secondly, we have to know that we learn out from Chumash Bereshis that this is the way a Jew talks. Remember when Yaakov was masquerading as Esav, Yitzchak asked Yaakov, how did you get here so fast? I just told you you had to catch 2 goats. How did you get so fast? So Yaakov said, Ki hikra Hashem alikecha lefanei. Hashem chanced it that I should get it. Ooh. Yitzchak became suspicious. He says, Hakol kol Yaakov. That sounds like Yaakov. Rashi says, why does it sound like Yaakov? Because he has Shem Shemayim Shogar B'fiv. He always says Hashem. That's the way a Jew is. A Jew trains himself, herself, to always say Hashem. That's the Al Pi Hashem Yachanu V'Abi. This needs, by the way, this doesn't come by itself. Especially if we don't have the habit, we need to practice it. But it's really worth practicing. Because B'chol Drachecha Da'ehu V'hu Yiyasher Orchesecha, that's the purpose of Ben Sira. He says, good things happen if you say Im Yirtzeh Hashem. Atzas Hashem Hisokim. He is Im Yirtzeh Hashem. The Ramban says that we should always beware that we shouldn't think that Koichi v'oitzim yodi asali esachayel hazeh. He warns us that we shouldn't attribute it to our prowess, our strategy. We dodge this by saying always Im Yirtzeh Hashem, Be'ezras Hashem. We dodge it. The Chavis Avavas says in Shara B'tachon that a person should always acknowledge Hashem's dealings in his activities. Now, the counterpart of this is that afterwards we should always say Baruch Hashem. Somebody asks us, how are you? Baruch Hashem. Now people make fun of it. Can't get anything out of it. He's a black hatter. He just says Baruch Hashem. Don't make fun of it. Don't make fun of it. We learned it out from Eliezer. Eliezer, when he was looking for a shidduch, and Hashem sent Rivka, Eliezer says, "Vayomer Baruch Hashem Elikei Adoni Avram." Baruch Hashem. The Chavis Avavas tells us a rule Dvarim shiraitza lahasmid ba al tiftach ba. Things that you want to continue, don't take them for granted. Such a good rule. Don't take for granted that we breathe easily. Don't take for granted that the heart pumps readily. Don't take for granted that the eye sees and the ears hear. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Pasuk tells us, boy, is this a loaded parsha. There's a lot of things that we're not going to get to in this year. Remember that there is also a shir called for the Shabbos table that I usually put on sometime Thursday night. Also, I want to mention, first of all, thanks again to Dr. and Mrs. Block for sponsoring the shir in honor of their grandson's graduation. Moshe Mordechai ben David Yeshaya. This is the second week in a row that I didn't get a sponsor till the day of the shir. I want to ask, I know that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people enjoying this shir. I see it on my dashboards. If you like the shir, become a sponsor one week. 718-916-3100. You could text me at that number. 24/7 you could text me. 718-916-3100. Or email me at rmmwsi, that's Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island, at AOL.com. It says, V'asafsuf asher bekirbo, the rabble in their midst, refers to the Erev Rav. His avu taiva, they cultivated a desire. V'yeshuvu v'yipku gam b'nei Yisrael. And that caused that also the b'nei Yisrael themselves would cry. V'yayimru, and they said, Mi achilenu basar. We're tired of this mon. Where's the beef? Why did you do bad to your servant to put the burden of all these people on me? And if this is my fate, kill me. It's the obvious question. The sin of the Egel Azov, the golden calf, idolatry right after Hashem appeared at Har Sinai and said, don't worship idols. The sin of the spies, that was much more grievous than just asking for meat. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have such a radical reaction. Why does he have such a radical reaction over here? That I can't take it. Can't take them. Rabbi Twersky gives a profound answer to this question. Rashi says that what the Bnei Yisrael were really crying about, that the was boichel mishpachaisav. They were crying that the Torah prohibited incest, marrying into their own family, which they were able to do beforehand. And that's what they really were bothered about. But they didn't say what was really bothering them. They said that they missed the barbecue. They missed the steak. They missed the veal. They missed the frankfurters. Rabbi Twersky said this is a problem that is very hard for a leader to deal with. If you tell the leader what's the problem, the leader could work on fixing it. But if you're not even honest about what the problem is, or you yourself are in denial of what the problem is, that's very hard to fix. And that's something that today happens very much. A person thinks that the problem is in their marriage. The problem isn't in their marriage. The problem is that they're not happy. When a person is in denial of what the problem is, that's a very hard thing to solve. Here's a person that blames everything on everything else, when really the problem is he's learning and he's not succeeding in his learning. So he's a very unfulfilled person. But he's blaming it on everything else. By the way, this problem, this dynamic, also is a problem. We have an industry in this country, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, the amusement industry. You see, people are seeking the universal quest of happiness. The problem is that people aren't aware of what's making them unhappy. Rav Noach Weinberg made this powerful point. He said, the unhappiness that we're experiencing is not body unhappiness. It's soul unhappiness. The soul isn't fulfilled. And by trying to fill that with body happiness, they're not addressing the real problem. Unhappiness comes from the soul being unhappy. To try to fill that with sensual pleasures is not addressing the problem. We have to fill it with spiritual pleasures, whether it's Torah, whether it's Chesed. Unhappiness comes from the soul. What's a soul? A soul is a chelik lekamimal. It's a sliver of God. How do you make God happy? Mahu rachem afata rachem. Mahu chanan afata chanan. Just like He's merciful, you have to be merciful. Just like He's gracious, you have to be. That's why the Rambam says, "Ein simcha mefoara." There's no more glorious happiness than to be mesameach aniyim, misaimim, almanas, geirim. Now, Klal Yisrael said, "V'nafshenu yevesha ein kol." Our soul is dried up. We have nothing. Bilti el aman einenu. What do we have? We have the man. So Rashi says a very powerful thing that echoes throughout the ages. Rashi says, Hashem says, Bo'u alma elu misramim alai. Come and see what they're complaining about. They're complaining about my holy man. They're complaining about lechem abirim, the bread of angels. They're complaining about the man. They didn't have to go to the bathroom because everything was perfect. There was no waste in the man. It tasted like anything they wanted it to taste like. And that's what they were complaining about. Rav Pam, in his direct way, says that this taina reverberates throughout the millennia. Rav Pam gives 3 examples. Says a father comes home at the end of the day, and the house is a mess. There's toys all over, even some crayon marks. And he starts complaining, this house, it looks like the city dump. And Rapam says, Hashem says, Re'u ma elu misramin. You know how many childless couples would be over the moon to have toys strewn on their floor? And this is what he's complaining about? Then Rapam gives a second example. He says a yeshiva bacher comes home and there's lokshin and cheese for supper. And the child complains, this is supper? Rapam says, you know how many people go to sleep hungry? Now, I told you, I once heard from Rab Lichtig, who learned in Yeshiva Chachmei Lublin. I asked him, what were the two biggest challenges of his youth? He says one was that there were many times that he went to sleep without supper, and he couldn't sleep in the night because of hunger pains. Nobody that I know of my generation, I'm not talking about those that were in Russia, those that were in the Holocaust, but nobody in my generation ever couldn't go to sleep because they didn't have food to eat. They might not have liked the supper. They might not have been in the mood of eating it, but there was something to eat. Rapam said, how could you be ungrateful? You have food on the table. I remember my good Talmud, my good friend, Rabbi Newman, collects for chickens for Shabbos. He went out together with Lahavdil Ben Chaim L'Chaim, Reb Fabian Schoenfeld, and he saw that there were families that on Shabbos they would eat tuna. They didn't have chicken. The third example Reb Palm gives is that he goes to a wedding, and the Mechatonim are fighting who should walk down the Chassan and Kala, the two fathers or the father and mother. They get into such a fight, it ruins the whole wedding night. Or that the Kala's parents were terribly upset, and they didn't want to talk to the Mechatonim, because in the Yichud room, the Kala was given fake jewelry instead of real jewelry. The nerve. Rapam says there's so many girls into their 40s that are not married yet, and this is what you're fighting about? I want to give an example of this. Listen carefully. There are people that complain that they're bored. You're bored? When there are people every week going to chemo, and then after the chemo they're so nauseous they can't even eat anything, and they're in pain, and then they have to do it again. There are people every 3 days that have to go to dialysis. There are people that have to work 3 jobs and they're so bone weary that people that have hernias that they don't even have time to go to take care of the hernia because they'll lose their job. And you're complaining that you're bored? You have to be careful not to be ungrateful. The final point that I want to make for this evening It says, "V'asafsuf asher b'kirba yisavu taiva." It doesn't say the rabble had a desire. That's normal. It's normal that we have a yetzer hara. It's normal that we have desires. But hisavu taiva means they desired for desire. What does that mean? That means that there was a Greek custom called apiktoizin. Apiktoizin is that after they had a gourmet meal, they put their finger up their throat and vomited so that they could eat again. That means that when they were satisfied, they desired desire. That's a terrible thing. Desires, we have desires. We have yetzer haras. But that Hashem gives us satisfaction. And then we need to cultivate new desires. We desire. That's not good. And by the way, that's the whole advertising industry. The whole advertising industry is to create new desires. It's to create, oh, look at that. They're making cruises, kosher cruises. Person never had a desire, but now, I'm looking for new desires. It's not enough that we have over here the Kvarim of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Chavetz Chaim's second wife. It's not enough. We have the Satmar Rebbe, the Heilige Satmar Rebbe. We have the Heilige Ribnitzer Rebbe in Monsey, Skalener Rebbe. No, we have to go to a tour to Poland. We have to find new desires. That's not good. Hashem says, I don't want you to be dissatisfied with satisfaction. This is, you realize, Rabbi say, this is the antithesis of Ezel Asher HaSameach B'Chelka. The element of Sameach B'Chelka is to be happy with what we have. Here the person is not happy with what he has. He's dissatisfied to be satisfied. Even though the Rebbeinu Shalom is also likol tzarki, no, I gotta see. Oh, I'm missing this. I only have a place in the country. I don't have a place in Florida. I only have a place in the country in Florida. I don't have a villa in Eretz Yisrael. Person is cultivating new types. That's what the Torah is warning us not to do. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to remind you that we do have a Zoom daf where you could learn the daf yomi. We're going to be soon finishing the hard Masechta of Shavuos, and in less than 10 days, we're going to be starting Masechtas Avodah Zarah. If you want to start Masechtas Avodah Zarah with our Zoom family, the coordinates is zoomdaf.com, and it's to get on. The code is all capitals RMMW, Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss. Motzei Shabbos we learned 2 dafin at 10:40. It's pretty late now, and during the week the share is at 8:55. So we would love to have you join us. And again, we are looking for sponsors for the shiurim. There are many sponsorship opportunities. You could sponsor Avodah Zarah. You could sponsor the Chumash share. You could sponsor Mishnah Yomis, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night and a good Shabbos.